Today's lesson is called The Interlopers, Day 1. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff.
And I'm Roger. We've got a little piece of literature to talk about today. It's a short story by the British writer Hector Hugh Munro, and the title of the story is The Interlopers.
So it sounds like there's not one, but maybe two or more interlopers. But what the heck is an interloper? Well, an interloper is kind of like a trespasser, but this particular word is stronger than that. An interloper is a person who finds himself involved in a bad situation or in a place where they're not wanted. Not unlike a trespasser, but like I said before, interloper is a much stronger word than trespasser. It sounds like an interloper is a trespasser who is in big trouble for one reason or another.
And this is a story of a rivalry between two guys by the names of Ulrich and Georg. So let's find out what this is all about. But first of all, we're going to read the first part of our lesson to sort of get used to our lesson for today.
The Interlopers. Hector Hugh Munro was a British writer who many regard as a master of the short story form. In one of his most famous stories, The Interlopers, he tells the tale of lifelong enemies Ulrich and Georg.
大家好，今天第一个单字我们看到的是 lifelong。这个字当作形容词，代表终身的或是一辈子的意思。例如 collecting stamps and coins has been a lifelong hobby of my older brother. 收集邮票和硬币是我哥哥终身的嗜好。
All right, everyone. Before the break, Roger mentioned some guy named Hector Hugh Munro. And I had never heard of this writer before. The name seemed familiar to me, but I didn't think I'd ever heard of this guy before. But Roger was right. Hector Hugh Munro is indeed the author of our story for today and the day after that, a story called The Interlopers. Now, more on Hector Hugh Munro. Hector Hugh Munro was a British writer who many regard as a master of the short story form. I believe he shares a distinction like this with Alice Munro. I'm not sure if those two people are related, but Alice Munro was a Canadian writer who won the Nobel Prize in Literature for writing short stories, so she's most definitely a master of the short story form by pretty much any estimation. And I also believe that Ernest Hemingway was also known as being a master of the modern short story, whatever that happens to be. One way or another, Hector Hugh Munro was a talented writer. He was from Great Britain, and he chiefly wrote short stories, or at least his short stories are what he is best known for.
And of course, the nice thing about short stories is they're short. It's not going to take you as much time to read them as it would a novel. For me, in the past years when I had more time to study Chinese, of course, I preferred trying to read short stories because it would take me less time than actually reading a whole novel. Trying to read a whole Chinese novel for me at the time would probably take me several months, if not years. And the other nice thing about these short stories is they're probably available online free of charge. So let's get to it. Let's talk about this story here. But in any case, it says here to finish off the first part, in one of his most famous stories, The Interlopers, he tells the tale of lifelong enemies, Ulrich and Georg. Okay, I don't think he's talking about Ulrich, the famous cyclist from Germany. These are just characters in this short story. Ulrich and Georg. They sound like German names to me, but they don't like each other at all. They've been enemies ever since they were children, and they're enemies up to now. So if you've been enemies all your life, or if you've done something all your life, we use the word lifelong. I'm a lifelong fan of the Beatles, for example.
Anyway, one way or another, Ulrich and Georg do not like one another at all. Apparently, they're lifelong enemies. How about that? Now, Roger already touched on this, but it can't hurt to talk about this word in a little bit more detail. The word lifelong means lasting for a person's entire life. So, for as long as Ulrich and Georg can remember, for as long as they've been alive, they've hated one another. They have been enemies or adversaries. How about that? All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. When we come back, we'll continue to read from a story called The Interlopers.
Ulrich and Georg have been enemies since birth, born into a 3-generation-old inter-family rivalry that began with a dispute over the forested area that separates their properties. Although the forest is legally owned by Ulrich's family, Georg's family has never acknowledged this and frequently enters the forest anyway. One night, convinced that Georg has once again entered his territory, Ulrich gathers together a hunting party to stake out the forest in hopes of catching Georg. As he wanders ahead of his comrades, Ulrich gleefully imagines what he will do when he meets Georg.
第二部分我们看到的单字是 generation， 这个字当作名词，它有世代、一代或是能源的产生的意思。所以我们可以说 My family has run this business for 3 generations. 我家族经营这项事业已经3代了。再来我们看到的单字是 acknowledge， 这个字当作动词，代表承认或是认可的意思。例如 Joe acknowledged that he didn't spend much time preparing for the exam. Joe 承认他没有花很多时间准备考试。接下来我们看到的单字是 convince， 这个字当作动词，它有使相信、使信服或是说服的意思。例如，一些奇怪的事件让 Megan 确信她的房子有鬼。英文可以这么说 Several strange occurrences convinced Megan that her house is haunted. 再来我们看到的单字是 comrade， 这个字当作名词，代表伙伴或是战友的意思。所以我们可以说 The soldier called to his comrades for help. 那名士兵向他的伙伴求救。
Okay, so let's talk about the story, The Interlopers, here in the second part of our lesson. Remember, we were introduced to the main characters of this story, 2 men by the names of Ulrich and Georg. Ulrich and Georg have been enemies since birth. We could say they're lifelong enemies. They're born into a 3-generation-old inter-family rivalry that began with a dispute over the forested area that separates their properties. So notice here we've got 3-generation-old rivalry, okay? So if you're using these words to describe something, but you need to use all 3 words at the same time, then we put little hyphens between there, 3-generation-old, okay? So in other words, this rivalry has been going on for 3 generations. The generation, of course, is the age of a certain group in the family, like your parents are one generation, your grandparents are another generation, you're in the modern generation. So yes, it's an old rivalry over 3 generations, so their fathers and their grandparents, I guess it only goes that far, they've been enemies for that long.
So the feud apparently between these 2 families has been going on for quite a long time. It all began with Ulrich's grandfather and Georg's grandfather. Apparently these 2 guys didn't like each other either, and they didn't like each other because they had disputed lands between them. Yes, all of this began with a dispute over the forested area that separated their properties, and to this very day, the time when the story takes place, I should say, these 2 families are still going at it. This 3-generation-old inter-family rivalry is still going strong when our story begins. Now, more on this word generation. Very simply, a generation is a group of people born at around the same time. Now, generations follow one after another down through the ages. But like Roger said, usually you can split these things up along family lines. Like parents and children, for instance, are not part of the same generation, okay? Both are part of their own generation. So Ulrich's grandparents, let's say, that was one generation. Then his parents and the people born around that time, that same time, were another generation. And then we reached the generation of Ulrich and Georg. They are a part of the same generation. Anyways, this This particular rivalry, it's been going on for 3 generations, quite a long time, and it is described as being an interfamily rivalry. Now, what does this mean? Interfamily, I-N-T-E-R, family. Well, it means between families. An interfamily rivalry is a rivalry between 2 different families. Now, this prefix, I-N-T-E-R, inter, it means between 2 or more things. Now, this is opposed to the prefix intra, I-N-T-R-A, meaning among. So, inter, I-N-T-E-R, means between. Intra, I-N-T-R-A, means among. Then, last but not least, we also have this word rivalry to talk about. A rivalry is a competitive relationship between 2 or more people or things, kind of like families, in which these people, rivals, these people or families, they're called rivals. In this rival relationship, these people, these rivals, these families, whatever, they're trying to win the same thing. They're competing to win the same thing. That's what a rivalry is all about.
I understand there's a big rivalry between 2 soccer teams in England, Manchester United and Manchester City. They are rivals. They always want to beat each other. And in American baseball, of course, we often talk of the rivalry between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. They always want to beat each other. So they have this interfamily rivalry, and it began 3 generations ago with a dispute or a disagreement or an argument over a forested area or the forested area that separates their properties. So they have different estates, and there is an area with a lot of trees. That's a forested area. That's what that means here. If a place is forested, it's got lots of trees. There's a forest there. There are many forested areas in Nantou County, for example, here in Taiwan. Lots of forests there, even bamboo forests down there. Although the forest is legally owned by Ulrich's family, Georg's family has never acknowledged this. To acknowledge something just means to admit something is the case, to recognize it. But Georg's family just says, no, even though you guys have the title to the land, it's legally yours. We don't admit that. We will not admit that you are the owners of this. We do not acknowledge that. There's something wrong with the law, or you got that property through illegal means or something like that. It's actually ours. And because of that, Georg's family frequently enters the forest anyway. We're going to go in there anyway, even though the law says it's your forest.
So I guess they must be the interlopers, right? Well, it's going to get more complicated than that, i.e., the issue of who the interlopers are. Anyways, one way or another, apparently Ulrich's family does own the land legally, but Georg's family, they don't pay attention to this, okay? They don't really think that Ulrich's family owns this land, so they go into the forest, they enter the forest anyway, they don't care. Then one night, convinced that Georg has once again entered his territory, Ulrich gathers together a hunting party to stake out the forest in hopes of catching Georg. So this is when the story begins. Yeah, one night, Ulrich is convinced that Georg has once again entered his territory. That is, he's certain of this. He believes this with all of his heart. He has no doubt in his mind that Georg is trespassing. Okay, so he does something. He puts together a hunting party to stake out the forest because he wants to catch Georg. Now here we've got this phrase, to stake out, okay? If you stake something out, or you go on a stakeout or something like that, you put yourself in a position to watch or to monitor someone or something. So he's staking out the forest here. He's putting himself in a single position so that he can see Georg and catch Georg red-handed while trespassing.
These are a bunch of hunters, maybe about 10 or 20 people. They all have hunting rifles or shotguns or whatever, and they're going to take up different positions in the forest so they can catch Georg. Ha ha! You are trespassing on our land. You are going to pay the price for that. Now, as he wanders ahead of his comrades, Ulrich gleefully imagines what he will do when he meets Georg. So he's wandering ahead of his comrades. Those are the people who are with you. We could say his fellow hunters. And he's gleefully imagining something. If you do something gleefully, you're doing it happily. You're celebrating something. You feel like you've triumphed over somebody or you've defeated them. He's pretty much celebrating before he's even won.
Yeah, he's wandering ahead of his comrades, his friends, his companions there in the hunting party. And he's gleefully imagining, what I'm going to do with Georg. I can't wait until I catch him red-handed. Ooh, he's thinking about this gleefully. He's doing this with glee and joy and happiness. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break. But when we come back, we'll be wrapping up day one of our story called The Interlopers.
Mid-thought, Ulrich circles around a tree and walks right into Georg. Caught off guard, both men glare at each other and ready themselves to attack. Suddenly, however, a strong wind sweeps through the area, and a large portion of the tree crashes on top of them. Trapped and in pain, Ulrich looks over at Georg, only to realize that his enemy is in the same predicament. With no chance of freeing themselves, they are forced to wait until their respective hunting parties arrive to help.
第三部分我们看到的单字是 glare， 这个字当作动词，它有怒视、瞪眼的意思。例如，当 Gina 的男友忘记她的生日时，她怒瞪着他。英文可以这么说 ：Gina glared at her boyfriend when he forgot her birthday。今天最后一个单字我们看到的是 respective。这个字当作形容词，它有各自的或是分别的意思，所以我们可以说 At the sound of the bell, the boxers came out of their respective corners. 铃声一响，拳击手从各自的角落走出来。
Okay, everybody, now remember where we left off. Ulrich gathered together a hunting party. They were looking for Georg. They believe that Georg is trespassing into the forest. And he's thinking gleefully, when I catch Georg, I can't wait to torture him. I'm going to make him kneel down, and I'm going to make him lick my feet. I'm going to punish him, etc., etc. But mid-thought, okay, as he's thinking about these things, something else is happening. He's still thinking about this thing, but he's kind of interrupted. Ulrich circles around a tree and walks right into Georg. So he's imagining the terrible things he's going to do to Georg, but hey, there he is. He just went around a tree. He circled around a tree. And who was there? None other than Georg, his sworn enemy.
Yes, and because he was mid-thought when he walked right into Georg there, he was caught off guard, and he's not the only one. Get this, caught off guard. Both men glare at each other and ready themselves to attack. It sounds like they are going to square off and fight right now. Now, before we go ahead and move on here, let's talk about this word glare. To glare at someone is to look at this person with great intensity and or anger. Anyways, the next sentence says, suddenly, however, a strong wind sweeps through the area and a large portion of the tree crashes on top of them. Remember, Ulrich had circled around a tree, and now apparently this tree has fallen on top of both Ulrich and Georg. It has crashed on top of them, and trapped and in pain because the tree has fallen on them, Ulrich looks over at Georg only to realize that his enemy is in the same predicament. Now, here we've got the word predicament. A predicament, everyone, is a difficult or problematic situation.
That is difficult to get out of, so they're both caught under a really heavy tree branch or something. They have the same problem, and with no chance of freeing themselves, they're forced to wait until their respective hunting parties arrive to help. Respective here just means the individual parties that belong to one or the other, the respective hunting parties. So Ulrich is waiting for his buddies to come, and Georg is waiting for his buddies to come. They're waiting for their respective hunting parties.
Respective, having to do with or connected to each of two or more people or things taken separately. That is important. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to end today's story, but don't worry, don't fret. The Chinese teacher is on the way.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分有一个句子是 One night, convinced that Georg has once again entered his territory, Ulrich gathers together a hunting party to stake out the forest in hopes of catching Georg. 有一天晚上 Ulrich 他确信 Georg 又再度进入他的地盘，于是就召集一群狩猎的同伴来监视那一座森林，希望可以抓到他。好，那这个句子它有使用到分词构句的句型，它原本可以写作 One night Ulrich is convinced that Georg has once again entered his territory, and Ulrich gathers together a hunting party 什么什么什么。那由于前后两个子句它的主词相同，都是 Ulrich， 我们可以省略连接词还有其中一个主词，再把动词改成分词的形式。如果动词是主动的时候，就用现在分词，也就是动词 ing。那被动的时候，我们就用过去分词 pp。好，那课文就是把前半句的主词 Ulrich 省略，然后把 be 动词 is 改成 being， 可是 being 通常会省略不用，所以才留下后方的 convinced。 好，另外补充一下 in hopes 的用法， in hopes 也可以说 in hope 或是 in the hope 来表达期望啊、希望什么什么。那这些的用法后面是可以接 that 子句，那你还可以用 in hope of、 in the hope of、 in hopes of 加上名词或动名词。例如 He drove around the block again in hope of finding a parking space. 他开车再绕一次那个街区，希望可以找到停车位。好，接着我们读到课文倒数第二句，他说 Trapped and in pain, Ulrich looks over at Georg, only to realize that his enemy is in the same predicament. Ulrich 他被困住，非常非常痛苦，他眼睛就往 Georg 那边看过去，就发现说他的仇人也是身处一样的困境。好，那这边的 predicament 这个字就表示尴尬的处境啊，或是困境、窘境，它是当名词。好，那这个句子它同样是有使用分词构句，它就是省略了连接词 and 以及前半句的主词。好，不过我们这边要讲解的重点是 only to 加原形动词。only to 原形动词把它接在主要子句后面的时候，就是来强调结果出乎意料之外，或者是令人惊讶，或是令人失望等等。那它的句型是主词加动词逗号 only to 加原形动词，就表示说结果却怎么样，不料却怎么样怎么样。好，举例来说 They took a taxi to the restaurant only to find that it was fully booked. 他们搭计程车去那间餐厅，结果却发现它客满了。好，那以上是今天的重点整理，接着我们就来回顾今天的单字吧。
Lifelong. He had a lifelong passion for playing the piano. Generation. The Smith family has lived on that farm for 5 generations. Acknowledge. Some people refuse to acknowledge the president as the leader of their country. Convince. My best friend convinced me to join the tennis team with her. Comrade. I met up with an old comrade at our high school reunion. Glare. My parents glared at me when I arrived home late at night. Respective. Tamara and Amy entered the theater and made their way to their respective seats.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.